All right, thank you. Good morning, I'm Mark Nowacki, Director of the Victim Witness Program, and it is my honor and privilege to welcome you to our annual luncheon commemorating National Crime Victims' Rights Week. I always like to start things off with a little bit of humor, and so my wife and I were starting to get up there in age, and we noticed that the eyes went first, but the worst part is the memory's starting to go a little bit. So my wife was very concerned, so she thought we needed to go see a doctor. So being a good husband, I said, yes, ma'am. So we went and saw a doc, and he said, what I want you to start doing is when you want to accomplish a little task, I want you to write it down first. Everything you do, I want you to do that for 2 weeks and then come back and see me. So we said, okay. So a couple of nights later, we're in the living room, and my wife says, you know what sounds good? A bowl of ice cream. I said, I'll get it for you. And she said, write it down. I said, honey, I'm going to walk to the kitchen and get a bowl of ice cream. She said, remember what the doctor said? I said, no problem. I'll be all right. So I went in the kitchen, and I came back, and I brought her plate of scrambled eggs and bacon. And she looked at me and said, I told you the doctor said to write it down. I knew you were going to forget my toast. So anyways, great crowd. Really appreciate everyone being here. I think what we'll do is I'm going to recognize some distinguished guests here, and I'm just going to tell you right up front that if anybody's cell phone rings, Maggie, I saw you reaching for the purse. Was that you? So if you would put your cell phones on silent, that'd be great. So let's go ahead. We'll start with the presentation of the colors by the Virginia State Police. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I'm going to start by recognizing and thanking two very important sponsors of this event. First and foremost, Team Jordan, Suicide Prevention and Survivor Counseling. Chris Jenkins is the chair. He's here. We really appreciate Team Jordan. They've been on board with us almost 10 years now. Great supporter of victims' rights. And then Glenn and Ronnie Hooper were kind enough to donate desserts, which will be over there while we finish up our luncheon. I also want to recognize Mark from Congresswoman Spanberger's office, as well as Carrie from Senator Reeves' office, and Delegate Nick Freitas is here. Also want to thank Channel 21 and Culpeper Star Exponent for their media coverage. Helping us promote awareness is really important to these events, so we appreciate them. I want to recognize SAFE, our Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Center, for being here. And then I'd like to introduce our head table here. I've got our Board of Supervisors Chairman Paul Bates is here, and I believe Vice Chairman David Durr is here also. John Eggerston, our County Administrator, and this year's recipient of the Victims Advocacy Award, Master Police Officer Tim Sisk. And then I've got Pastor Dan Carlton from Culpeper Baptist Church that's going to offer our invocation before our meal, and our very special guest speaker, Tanya Gould, who will be speaking here in just a few minutes. Let's give them a round of applause, please. And I also want to recognize a couple other people. I got Clark Kilgore with the Office of the Attorney General is here, Chris Hively, and we've got some, I think, several town council members here. The Honorable Russ Rabb, and pretty much just about his whole staff is here. Carson Beard, I believe, is here. I haven't seen Carson yet. There he is. There's Carson. And Missy White. I know Missy's, yep, there's Missy. And I want to thank my partner in the Victim Witness Program, Macy Fleischer, who is responsible for most of this. I just get to stand up here and get all the credit, but really, Macy's the one doing the work behind the scenes, so let's give all them a round of applause. And as I've done in the past, I would never miss an opportunity to recognize one of the wisest people I know, a noble warrior for life, and the most beautiful young lady in this room, my daughter, Brittany. Also want to thank the Virginia State Police. Colonel Settle, has he arrived yet? I know he plans on being here. He's got a busy schedule, but know we got Captain D. Filippi's here. I don't know, is Brooks Taylor here? Brooks with the state police. Him and I interact quite a bit. He's been very helpful with so many different things with victims' rights, so I appreciate them. And thanks to the Virginia State Police Color Guard for presenting the colors. Chief Settle with the police department and many of his command staff and officers are here. I believe the sheriff's deputy Jones is here. I know the sheriff could not make it because this is his annual conference at the same time. And First Sergeant Anderson with Germanna Police, I believe, is here. So what I'd like to do is recognize everyone in law enforcement that wears a uniform, puts their life on the line for all of us. Every year, it's important to me to recognize our officers. What a job, you know. And these times, they just keep getting worse and worse. It's a tough time to be a cop. So let's give a really warm and sincere appreciation for everybody in uniform and all our officers here. And last but certainly not least, we have a couple of survivors here. Unfortunately, two moms and grandmother of two young children that were murdered here in Culpeper. Miss Denise and Miss Helen are here. Let's give them a round of applause. In all honesty, every year I seem to forget somebody. If I forgot you, please forgive me. I should probably just go around the room and just name everybody because you're all valuable. So, you know, I'm glad Gary Close, our former Commonwealth Attorney, I'm so glad you're here. I see Lisa's back there, my good friend Pete, Richard, everybody here. Thank you, everybody. You're all important, and we're all in this together. It does take an entire community. So let's go ahead and eat. We'll go ahead and have our pastor come up, Pastor Dan, and say the invocation, and then I'll start lining up the tables to go get some food, please.
Will you pray with me? God, we thank you for the beauty of this day, for the beauty of our community. We thank you that you're a God of justice. We thank you that you are restoring and healing and renewing folks who have suffered from crimes. Lord, we thank you for those in this room who carry such a leadership responsibility in our community. We pray that you continue to give them wisdom as we confront some of the realities of our world. Lord, we're thankful for this day. And so give us open ears and open hearts. And Lord, we ask you to bless this food as we gather and fellowship around the tables. In your name we pray. Amen.
So at this time, I'm going to ask our delegate, Nick Freitas, to come on up. He has a special presentation he'd like to offer.
Okay, I want to, again, thank Mark for the opportunity to present these. I've been holding on these for a while now, waiting for an opportunity for both individuals to be here. And I think once again, well, no, they are both here. Excellent. So we have two commending resolutions here from the Virginia General Assembly. One I've been holding on to a while for the right time. It was in honor of a retirement, and then he goes back and joins the police force again. But that's okay. We're glad to have him. And then the other, I was a little bit upset because the feds managed to give him his commending resolution before the state could. And if there's anything I can't stand, it's the feds getting one up on us in the state legislature. But I got to give credit to Congresswoman Spanberger's office. They were Johnny on the spot with that. But if I could please get Mr. Richard Brooking and Chief Jenkins up here very quickly just for this presentation. Had to make sure I had the right ones. That would have been embarrassing. Let me. So obviously, anybody that's been in Culpeper for a while, anybody that's had any interaction, hopefully positive, with the local police department, knows that Chief Jenkins and Detective Brooking have been integral members not only of the department but of the community. And it demonstrates not only the effort and the time that they've put in into a dangerous occupation when wearing the uniform, but even in their off time, constantly working with people on how they could make their community a better place. And when we think about this concept of a police department that is so integrated with the community, that is seen as members and friends of that community and people that can be trusted in some of the most dangerous, some of the most violent situations where they show up recognizing that oftentimes they're having to deal with people on their worst day and treating them with the sort of respect that allows for a very, very effective law enforcement organization. But then on top of that, I think it's always appropriate when we can take a moment to recognize that the job they do is incredibly difficult. And a lot of times we have the benefit of hindsight when we get to sit back and look at a particular decision that might have been made in any given situation and think, well, why didn't they do it this way, or why didn't they do it that way, when they had to make that decision, sometimes life or death, not knowing what was going to happen to them, not knowing what was going to happen to their partner, not knowing what was going to happen to a citizen. And these two men, I think, exemplified everything that we want to see with people wearing the uniform. And so I hope you'll join me in congratulating them on these commending resolutions from the Virginia General Assembly.
Thank you, Nick, and congratulations, retired chief, and my good friend Richard. Congratulations, guys. Well earned, well deserved. So at this time, I'd like to invite our Deputy Commonwealth Attorney, one of our two Deputy Commonwealth Attorneys, Maggie Clary Kilgore, up to introduce our very special guest speaker. Maggie?
Thank you. Gosh, I hate speaking after Nick Freitas. I hate it, hate it, hate it. But here we are. Hi, everyone. I'm Maggie Cleary. I'm a Deputy Commonwealth's Attorney. Thank you all for being here today. First of all, big thank you to Mark and Macy for making today happen and every year. But this is such a special event, and I love seeing all the members of our community come together and support victims' voices. And I know that Russ Rabb in our office knows that that's what we do, and I feel like everyone here has that common mission and that common theme. And so thank you, Mark and Macy, for the work that you do every day, and thank you, everyone, for being here. If we could just give a round of applause to Mark and Macy. So now it is my pleasure to introduce Tanya Gould, who's our guest speaker today. And I'm so excited that she's here, and I can't wait for you all to hear her presentation. I'm going to read her bio, and then I'm going to go a little bit more personal and tell you some things that I know about Tanya. So Tanya Gould is a solutionist fighting against human trafficking, striving to impact legislative policy and raise public awareness. She is the Anti-Human Trafficking Director for the Attorney General of Virginia. I'll pause there for a second and note that this is the first time that anyone has ever held that position. It was actually created in the office for Tanya. And she has served on the Governor's Commission on Human Trafficking Prevention and Survivor Support. Again, this is the first time that that commission has been formed. Tanya recently has been appointed to the OSCE, Office for Democratic Institutions and Human Rights, International Survivors and Trafficking Advocacy Council, ISTAC. Tanya has given lectures and trainings at universities and has been interviewed on an array of podcasts, articles, and PSAs. She's also co-produced a documentary short film titled Groomed. Her daughter wrote, arranged, and performed all of the songs on the film. Tanya has served as a keynote speaker at anti-human trafficking conferences and worked with faith communities to raise awareness both nationally and abroad. She has served as a consultant to various anti-human trafficking organizations, as well as the U.S. Department of Justice's Office for Victims' Crime, U.S. Department of Homeland Security's Blue Campaign, Global Strategic Operatives for the Eradication of Human Trafficking, and U.S. Department of State's Trafficking in Persons Office. She also serves on boards and organizations such as Polaris, Beloved Haven, and Parliamentary Intelligence Security Forum Task Force on Human Trafficking. In 2022, Tanya received the Presidential Award for Excellence and Extraordinary Efforts to Combat Human Trafficking in Persons. She has served 2 terms on the United States Advisory Council on Human Trafficking. Now, I know that I've gone through a lot of different organizations and non-governmental and governmental types of boards and things that Tanya has sat on. And I will tell you, as someone who didn't know a lot about the anti-human trafficking field and got into it, I first was introduced to it in the governor's office. And pretty much every corner that I turned, at least one person that I met, and then usually the next person that I met, and the next person that I met would say, "Have you talked to Tanya Gould? Have you met Tanya Gould? She is the expert in Virginia. And in fact, she's one of the experts in our country." So I had the great privilege to work with Tanya in the Attorney General's office, and I got to see that continue. And Tanya is such a wonderful person to work with. She brings just a beautiful light and joy to every room that she walks in. And I can't wait for you all to hear her story today, because it increases the influence that she has, and it increases any sort of appreciation you have for her just off the bat of meeting her. So Tanya is an incredible person. She's an incredible speaker. She's an incredible advocate for survivors of human trafficking, and I'm so pleased to be able to introduce her today. Without further ado, Tanya.
So awesome. Thank you so much. I mean, she could just stand up here for the rest of my time and talk about me. I'm okay with that. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you for having me. I have been, so just in the last 2 weeks, I have, for whatever reason, it's just been like a lot, right? Like a lot of people have been saying, you want to learn more about human trafficking, but it's been I've talked to about 700 people, the last 2 weeks. And I am not going to, this is my shortest presentation. So I'm here like, okay, how do I make this short? Because, a couple of them were like 90 minutes long. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, give you a small portion, and then I'm going to let you ask questions. Is that okay? Awesome. That way I can meet you where you are. One of my very favorite quotes I'm going to start with is by Martin Luther King Jr., and it's from Strength to Love. And he says, "Only through an inner spiritual transformation do we gain the strength to fight vigorously the evils of the world in a humble and loving spirit." And I just feel like in my life, I have walked that and continue to just kind of make that my mantra and continue to walk in that direction. So when I was about 18 years old, I was graduating from high school. I met my trafficker. And what I want to kind of walk with you, because a lot of people have a hard time understanding, like, how does a person get into something like this, right? Or why won't they leave, right, if they have an opportunity to leave? Like, I don't understand how this can happen. And I think this is a very crucial part of my story, just to help move the mind from one place to the other when we're talking about how people find themselves in a situation. So I was 18, graduating from high school. I do want to give you a little backstory. And, my childhood was very, very, very traumatic, in a way that I was really confused about the adults in my life, like their responsibility, whether it was in my church community, whether it was in my school community, and at home, right, and with family. And so there was a ton of different types of abuses that were happening. And, I was just trying to find my way, right, trying to find my way to survive. However, when I turned 18, graduating from high school, a couple of us kids decided to go rogue on a senior field trip, which, how many of us did that? Or, it's okay, you're old enough, your parents can know now. We decided to do something on our own, which was to go to an amusement park. And I'm from Jersey, so I'm a Jersey girl. Any Jerseyans in here? Oh, girl, look at you. Nice. Okay. So there's such thing as a Jersey girl. I don't know about like an Iowa girl or like a Texas girl, but there definitely is a Jersey girl, right? Oh, yeah. So we're on this field trip, together. I didn't have a date. Now, I didn't have a date because, and just it's okay if you laugh because I tell my stories all the time and make jokes in between. I am so good, but so I didn't have a date because I had like the cooties, right? Because I had a child in high school, right? No, everyone was getting abortions, but I had my own personal walk with that and decided to carry full term and to have my child in high school. And so that was very tough. My community also knew that I had a ton of child exploitation issues, which is formerly known as child pornography. Now we call it CSAM, child abuse sexual material. Yep. And so, I had like all these things, the community knew about it. And I always use this as just a way to describe how I felt. And it was this right here. And this represents my heart to the heart of my community. There was this distance. I felt like a total and complete mess. I felt like no one wanted to have anything to do with me, like I was a virus and someone can catch something, right? This is just kind of like how I was feeling. So when I go to the amusement park, my friends, they invited me to go. I didn't have a date. Now, when you were in high school, right, or maybe some of you still are, I don't know anyone's ages in here. I'm probably as young as you are. You have your little best friend, right? And then you have your best friend who has a best friend. And then you and that best friend really aren't best friends, right? But, that best friend has a boyfriend who has a cousin. And that was my trafficker, soon-to-be trafficker. Now, because I had all this happen, it is not like I had, an adult to say, well, who is this guy, right? Where are you going? Like, there were no checks into my life, right? And also, just think about how I have already had adult experiences, which is not okay for a child. But also, as a transitioning adult, I already have my own apartment, I already have my own car, and I was already doing other adult things on my own. So here I am. I'm happy that I have a date. We go on this field trip to the amusement park. And I need to tell you, this is another thing that was very important to me. I had a list. How many of us had a list of who they wanted to date? Do we still do that nowadays? I don't know. But I had a list. And on my list, the guy I wanted to be with, right, had to have a job, which shouldn't even be on a list like that, but that was on my list. A car, dress nice, a gentleman, and nice teeth. Well, he had all of those. And so when I met him, I thought, oh my God, this is the guy on my list. Now, I do also want to tell you this, that should have been a red flag. He was 28, and I was 18. But for all the reasons I just explained to you, I was already an adult, doing adult things, and have had adult experiences. Why would I be bothered that he was 28? Besides, all the guys that I was around, went to high school with, right? When you think about them, right, they were my age at the time, and they were not mature. They didn't have a job. They didn't have their own car, right? So we're on this at the amusement park, and I always say this because I am, such a dreamer, have always been a dreamer. And remember Seventh Heaven? I know I'm dating myself, but it's okay, just for now. Some of y'all are like, I don't know Seventh Heaven. Do you know Seventh Heaven? Well, whenever they went on dates and they went out to the fair, everything was so nice, right? It was like one of those kind of feelings where the weather was great, we're at this amusement park, he's taking the initiative and buying me things. I didn't need money. I was great. Even though I was in a situation I was always the type of person that would take the initiative and do things for myself. I was always very independent. And so the fact that he just took the initiative and was a gentleman, right? My walls began to come down. So the whole night we're having a great time. And in the evening, we decide to sit on a bench and we begin to people watch, right? I don't know, I've never done this, but it was pretty fun, where you're watching people and talking about them as they go by. That's basically what that is. So we're talking, and I'm sharing some things with him, and then I get to a moment where I'm sharing with him some of the things that I said to you and more. And he's listening so well. And he says to me something that no one ever said to me. He said, "I am sorry that happened to you." Right? I'm sorry that happened to you. No one in the social worker's office, right? No one in the medical field when I had to go for an exam, family, church. No one ever made me feel like this was not my fault. But at that moment, he connected to my humanity, right? He made me understand what it felt like to feel validated. There was this sense of belonging, and he went further to say, matter of fact, if I was in your life, that would have never happened to you. How many of you just want to love and be loved? 3? I know you want to love and be loved because it's in us. We want that. It's okay to be vulnerable. The world has taught us that we can't. Yeah, I wanted to love, and I wanted to be loved. And that's okay. Well, my trafficker knew this. You know what? Who does that? Who takes the vulnerable parts of you and use them to exploit you? Traffickers. That's what they do. So when people talk about what can we do to prevent this and to stop this, I'm like, well, because they know our vulnerabilities just as a society, as family, as they know what divides us. Traffickers they don't discriminate. And as long as there is a demand, there will always be traffickers. My trafficker sold me, which violated my right as a human, violated my right to be free, violated my right to choice. The buyers, they raped me, which violated my sense of safety and caused me deep trauma that ended up giving me a lifelong commitment to continuous therapy, not just for myself, but for my children and for my family. The outcries of injustices today aren't by any means surface. This cancer is webbed within the tapestry of our world. The fact that people are sought after and can be bought and sold in America, the land of the free, the home of the brave, is a brutal reality. Land of the free, not so much. Home of the brave, definitely, but not the bravery that was intended. Living in America should not require that one be brave. When I was in school, I remember singing the song, "My Country 'Tis of Thee." Do you remember that? Right? It's a great song. School was my safe haven. And I really thought that when I became an adult, I could experience this freedom. I lived that. When I sang that song, I meant every word because I did not think that freedom it was for children. I didn't believe that, but I dreamt it. Traffickers prey on the fact that we are disconnected from ourselves and each other. And this fact continues to be one that we are afraid to deal with, the division. The left, the right, the good, the bad. Wow, we perform so well, don't we? And we have to. All of us, from everywhere you look, we all perform. Wouldn't it be great if we could just be? We just had a little side discussion about that. We should have learned by now that when issues are taboo and are not addressed or brought into light, there are often the things that lag in the darkness where we struggle for the way to light and healing ourselves and each other. This is my hope that my America, in order to form a more perfect union, will indeed establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our prosperity. I did not have a chance at this as a child. We need to hold ourselves accountable and each other to the very basic foundational idea this country was founded on. What is happening does not secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and each other if we continue to keep silent and leave the most vulnerable behind. And so I wanted to just kind of talk briefly, although Maggie did a really good job, and then I'm gonna get to some questions because I know you kind of have some questions, so I don't know kind of which way to go. But, you know, having a voice and being able to do something about what happened to me and others is just wonderful, right? It's great to be able to have a platform, to be able to be innovative, to be able to reconnect to my dreams in order to make something happen. And what I love about our leadership is that, you know, you can talk a talk, but when you actually do something, you know, that's different. And our administration really decided to make human trafficking an issue and a priority. And so one of the things that the Attorney General and myself, we talked about is the fact that when I was trafficked, I went to regular like businesses, right? I went to the ice cream shop, you know, I went to McDonald's, right? And so a lot of times as community members, I feel like, you know, some people just feel like, how do I help in this? Like, how can I do something? And I understand if, you know, like, you know, a lot of people have the question, you know, how do I tell the difference between prostitution and human trafficking, right? That's a question I get often. Or how do I, and then if I see something, who do I go to? And then if I go to someone, what happens, right? These are like all the questions that are like in your head. And so we get it. And what we want to do is to begin to provide a plan so that you all know where to look to, and that we are following in alignment in our Commonwealth. And so 100% BAT, which is Business Alliances Against Trafficking, if you own a business, you can actually train your staff. You can watch a video, have your staff watch the video. That way they know that human trafficking is a thing in your own community, and they understand how to report, right? Because that's really what happens. They will also, in the video, you feel the community coming together. You see nonprofits, you know, you see law enforcement coming together to talk about this issue. And then you just kind of feel like you can contribute as a member of society to something like this. Because I often say that, and it's very true, human trafficking shouldn't happen anywhere. No one should be bought or sold for sex or labor. That just should not be a thing, but it is. But it should not be in America. It should not have happened to me. And so because I'm angry about this, just playing, I mean, you know, it's okay. You know, I get to say it, and I get to live transparently, and I get to be an open book. So, because it's nothing better than having a survivor that understands the mind of the trafficker to work with the community to try to help the community do better. Another question that people often ask that I'm just going to kind of speak to now is, how do we stop this? For me, it's a hard conversation. It is a very hard conversation. When I look at the root cause of human trafficking and what happened to me and what happened to those that were out there with me, it's the demand. I was at a law enforcement training, and Homeland Security was, they were the ones who were training. They talked about a woman who's 102 years old, who was being trafficked. 102. What I walked away with was, we have so much work to do. And if we don't begin to have conversations about the demand part, then what are we doing? What are we doing? How do we have those conversations? Well, we have to talk about pornography. We need to do research about the effects of pornography on people, right? What happens with that. We need to talk more about not just what happens to victims, but the long-term healing that happens when people are bought and sold. There's just so much with it, so many nuances to being a person who can be sold, right? And there's a lot of us in the world, but especially here in the U.S. Well, there's healing for that. Well, who can help us walk through that healing? Right? I mean, now you're seeing, which is great, where, hospitals are now being trained on this and is being offered at universities so people can learn how to help people who've been trafficked. But this particular crime has so many nuances. You have to be trauma informed and person centered in a very special way. So we have a lot of work to do, but it's not impossible. Right? It's not impossible. That's why I'm here. And, one of the things that I want to encourage you and leave with you is when you go through your own work and your own healing, because I'm not the only one who, had to go to counseling and therapy, right? We don't want to raise our hand for that one, probably. Sorry. All of us have stuff. Every last one of us. Every person sitting here. No one comes to planet Earth unscathed. Maybe that's what I'll call my book. Right? All of us have to go through something. When you decide to go through this in your life, go through the healing, the process, the journey, then you know what it takes and you build capacity in your own life. And that capacity can help others, right? And they tell you, the flight attendant, put the mask on you before you put it on someone else, right? So my thing to you is, do your best to heal from your own stuff, things that you've seen or been a part of. Go through that process so that we can build capacity for ourselves to help each other. I'm going to just kind of end there because I know you may have questions. I have been asked all kinds of questions, so it's okay. But I do want to meet you where you are, okay? All right, what we got?
I'll start. So I hope this isn't too personal, but I ask because I have no clue what the answer is. How did this guy lure you into this dark place? What was the process? How did that all begin?
Great. So during this encounter where we're sitting on the bench, as you can imagine, I'm definitely in a space where I'm sharing, right? And I will tell you that for the next 4 months, my entire life felt like that moment. My entire 4 months felt like that moment, right? Where before I was very suicidal, as you can imagine, with all the things that had taken place in my life and being a single mom. But he just really knew how to woo an individual, right? He had practiced at this. So for the next 4 months was just amazing. Matter of fact, someone from my community came and said to me, we're so excited for you. We learned, we see that you're happy, you found someone, who's taking care of you and your son. And, what do I want? This sense of belonging, right? So my trafficker knew all the steps to take these entire 4 months to make sure I felt that sense of safety and belonging and validation. So I started to go, because I had applied for a scholarship to go to university or to a college, and I was just preparing. He never said anything about me not going. He seemed very supportive. And so it's just a couple days where I'm about to start, and I get a phone call. And, he calls me and says, I want to talk about I want to talk about our life together. And, he says, I've been watching you over the last couple months, and I noticed that, you're this strong Black woman who takes care of her stuff, and, you take care of your son, and you don't really ask for help. You're so independent, and that's just beautiful. And I want you to help me, with what I'm doing. I was going to school for early childhood development, and he said that he worked at the post office. But he said to me, you're really ambitious, and there's a lot of things that you want, and how is it that, all the dreams that you have, like, how are we going to make the money to get that? And I'm like, we love each other, it'll happen, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no, I want to run something by you. And he said, before I run it by you, I'm going to say a word to you, and then I want you to tell me the first thing that comes to your mind. I was like, cool. I think I'm going to ask you. You guys are really quiet. So he said the word madam. What's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say madam? You look like you want to answer. Madam. Who said that? Prostitution. What'd you say? Okay. So I said stagecoaches in 1820s. He was like, good try. Try again. So I'm like, okay, madam, I guess it's an older woman who takes care of a younger woman. It's so funny. I got to tell you the side note. When I asked this question at an event I did yesterday, and I said, what do you think a madam is? They said, Madam Secretary. I was like, you're so awesome. Why didn't I think of that? I said, an older woman who takes care of a younger woman, they live in a brothel, I'm like coming up with all these things that we know what a madam is, right? And then he says, my mom is a madam. And I'm like, when you heard of human trafficking and you're just trying to wrap your mind around it and the train wrecks are happening, that is what was happening to me. I'm like, your mom was a madam. I didn't say that out loud because, I have to be mature because I'm 10 years younger than him, and I don't want to seem like I can't handle this stuff coming from my man, right? So he says, yep, my mom is a madam, and she's giving me the business. Now, I never thought in my wildest dreams that this is a business you give to your kids, right? So I'm having these like train wrecks and all kinds of stuff is happening in my mind. And I have to pretend that I'm okay with this and I know exactly what he's talking about. Because I don't want to lose what we just had these last 4 months. And then he says, it's okay. I just really need someone to handle like the business part of it. And, he's kind of talking through. He says things like, because I don't know this culture. Culture is something that has a set of rules that you live by. And there's a whole culture called, and we all know this, pimping and hoeing. That's what it is, pimping and hoeing. So I'm listening to him, and he says, oh, we already have girls. You don't have to worry about recruiting. You don't have to worry about any of this. And I'm like, okay. All right, and I'm kind of like giving a soft yes, And so he says to me, however, in order, because there are rules, right? And the rules to the game is that you have to earn the queenship, right? You have to earn being this ride or die person or the bottom. You just can't come in and expect people to know that you're going to be loyal. You have to go out there sometimes, And when he said that, I was like, I'm not doing that. He says, you're not? Why? I said, because I'm not a hoe. Because those are the people we think do this, right? That's what's in my mind. And I said it. I'm not a hoe. He says, you're not? Nope. I said, I'm not a ho-ho. Oh. He says, so let's talk about the guys you slept with already. When did I tell him this? Say it again. On the bench. Yep. By this time, I had had several STDs. He brought that up. I told him about that. He said, and, where's the father of your son? What is he doing for you? You're receiving stuff from the state? At least my girls are getting paid for what they do. So who's the real hoe? Now, I never heard anything this whole time. First of all, when he told me his mom was a madam, that would have been a red flag, right? I mean, I know the whole thing should be a red flag, but I'm just saying, with the girl with all the trauma, right? That was the first time for me. I was like, I don't remember. How did I miss this? That was my thought. These whole 4 months, how did I miss this? And now I'm in this situation. Like, I don't understand this. And when he said that to me, I felt that, when you judge someone and you feel like I was wrong, that's how he made me feel. I was wrong for judging what a hoe was. And that's what I get for doing that. At that, he hung up on me. And then for 2 weeks, I did not hear from him. But I couldn't wait to hear his voice. I started school. I wasn't talkative as I am, outgoing, none of that. I just needed to hear his voice. All the feelings and the overwhelming, when you're suicidal, the thoughts just come and they just kind of take you over. It feels very tangible. All of it just came rushing back. And when he called me, he said, very matter of fact, what is your answer? And I said, I'll do it. And he says to me, he switches it up, that's my girl. I knew it. I knew it from the moment I met you on the bench, that you were the one. And then, I'm sure people with trauma, right? A lot of times, we want to be in control. So, here's me trying to take over the situation at the chance I could. I said, I have some rules. I have some things. First of all, you can't hit me. Because, now it's all coming back. Madam, pimping and hoeing, right? I'm like, okay, maybe this is a thing. And he was like, we don't do that. What are you talking about? That's old school. And I believed him. I said, oh, okay. And I said, one more thing. I love you. So I don't want the money. I will do this to prove my love to you. Now, in his mind, he's ching ching, right? I did it. I really was the one. I was the right one. But in my mind, I only wanted what we had those 4 months. That's all I could think about. And for 18 months while I was being trafficked, that's all I wanted. That's all I lived for, was to have those moments. So. Thank you. Yes. Sure. I said this is going to be on you, right? Because I only had like 20 minutes. Which is my favorite part, which is why I do the work that I do. It was about 18 months. This was the first time that I left or had the opportunity to leave my trafficker. I went back to him 2 other times. They were very short-lived. But what he would do is, he would get all the dates for us, right? And he would arrange where we would go. Like, he would take care of all of that. However, there were times when we didn't do, keep the rules. There's the culture, and the culture has a list of rules. He would find ways to punish us, right? There's a list. And so this one particular time, we had to go get our own dates and create a safe space for us, as a team, while he went to go do something else. And it was because I had lost money, so it was like my fault. I lost money, and the other thing is in my trafficking experience, that's why they're all very different. We didn't do drugs, and so we weren't allowed to do drugs. So, but what he did, he deprived us of sleep. So often we didn't know where we were, how we got there, how long, the days ran into each other. And a lot of my memory then I don't even have. It's just not there. So in this particular instance, I lost my money and things have been going really bad this week. So he was like, you guys have to figure it out. So we are in DC at this moment, and we decided that we would have the system where one person would get into a vehicle, and then the girl behind, one of us would read out the license plate number. And it was really just for the buyer to know that we had some sort of system, right? So we're doing this practice, going back and forth, and then there came a time where the girl in front of me got into someone's car. I read the license plate number, but as this was happening and the car was about to pull off, another car came up for me, which I would not have gotten in the car. But because we had a higher quota than me, and it was really getting early in the morning, I have to get in, and I'm kind of mad. Me and the girl were like arguing. Really, I just wanted her to read out the license plate number. She didn't do it. Get in the car, and I my mind, it's just so weird sometimes. But I get in the car and I'm kind of upset, and I shut the door and I look over at the buyer, and he's not even looking at me. He takes off, and he takes off. I hear the doors, the locks go down, and his hands are straight on the wheel, and he's looking forward. And I'm like, this is like one of those moments in a movie where you're like trying to think of what do you need to do to get out of this space. So I'm, trying different things, trying to open the door. It's not opening, and he's not saying anything. He's just hands on the steering wheel. He's driving straight. And I'm telling him where he has to go, and he's not listening. And I say, my trafficker is going to get you. He knows where you're. I'm trying all kinds of stuff. Not working. So I figure we're going to stop. And when we stop, I'll come up with a plan. So we end up driving quite a distance, and he pulled into this chain-linked fence area. It was an old abandoned parking lot. And he drives in there, he turns the car off, and he looks at me, and he says, give me your money. Well, I can't do that, right? Because if I do that, that means I'm going to be in trouble again, and I won't get what I've been trying to get is just what we had those 4 months. I can't lose this, right? So I say no. He comes over on top of me with a knife, and we're struggling. I'm from Jersey, so in my mind, I can handle this. But as you know, he's stronger than me, and I can feel the strength gaining. And it's really a moment. People talk about their life flashing before their eyes, or they have this Matrix moment. There was this slow moment that seemed to last a really long time, where I hear a voice on my right side. It's like the window was up and it made it loud. And I hear a voice say, as we're struggling, what are you doing? You have a son. And it brought back that my son was at night care, because we had night care. Remember, we have a brothel, the mom that has the brothel. My son was at night care, and no one in my family knew what I was doing, not even a teeny bit. No one knew where my son was, nothing. And if I died, then my trafficker would have my son, my little one. And I never knew I had a mama bear in me, but she came out, and I gave him my money. He pushed me out of the car, and he left. And I yelled out that license plate number. I was so upset. I was angry. And I'm on the ground, and I scream out God's name, because we pray to meet a quota, and God answers. Right? That's how it is. So in my mind, God didn't help me, because now how am I going to go back? And then I realized I don't know where I am. I don't know how to get anywhere. I have no money. All I have on is my dress and what we call our hooker shoes. So at that thought, I stand up, I start walking out to the sidewalk, and I yell God's name again. I say, God, help me. And then a police car, the sirens come on, and my thought was, great, I'm going to jail. This is so kind of you. So as I walk over to the sidewalk, the law enforcement officer is, gesturing for me to come over, and I'm reluctantly going. And then he goes, come here, and I'm looking, I'm kind of going closer, and he says, what are you doing out here? And I'm like he doesn't know me to be asking me, And then he motions for me to come, and he's very persistent about it. And then he says, what are you doing out here? And when he said it, it was like, a father to a daughter, or a big brother to a little sister, right? Like he saw my humanness. He knew what I was doing out there, but that's not what he was asking me. Needless to say, I cried like a baby, and I always say this is every law enforcement officer's dream. I'm like, his was over there, and his name is, and I'm doing all this stuff. And he said to me, I'm still on my shift, but I'm going to help you. And I want you to get in my car and go to sleep until I get done. And there definitely has been times where my trafficker had talks with law enforcement while they were on duty, and then they would bisect when they were off duty. And so there was definitely this space where I didn't know if I could trust the situation, but I really wanted help. I did. It was at the right time. And I try to say that I do say it to law enforcement officers or for victim service providers. Sometimes you have to go with your gut, even though protocol may say, you can't have a body in your police car sleep in the back seat while it was under the police station, and I'm asleep. But he comes out, takes me to the bus station and pays for my ticket to go home. And I always say you have to have one of those friends that's crazy, because who was I going to call to be picked up? I had nothing on me. I had to go get my son from night care and pray that no one asked me any questions. And then I had to go home. So I had this friend that I called who ran over her boyfriend's foot a couple months ago. And I was like, I'm going to call her. And sure enough, she didn't say anything. She just picked me up and took me home.
So I think we could all sit here for a lot longer and ask more questions, but we are running out of time. That was amazing. Let's give her. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate your patience in working with us, but well worth it. What an amazing testimony, and we're so grateful that you took time out of your extremely busy schedule to share that with us. I'd like to hear more, actually, so thank you. Beautiful. All right, so we're going to finish up our luncheon with an award presentation. Each year we give a Victims Advocacy Award to someone in our community that goes above and beyond the call of duty to help and assist victims of crime. Hold on just a moment. Sorry, thank you. So, Tim Sisk, he began his law enforcement career in '94 with the Culpeper Sheriff's Office. He started working in the jail, and then he worked his way into investigations. Then he moved to the Culpeper Police Department in 2000 and was assigned to patrol. He served in the community in many different assignments, including patrol, investigations, commercial motor carrier safety, traffic, community policing, crash reconstruction, and now has made his way back to being a detective in the criminal investigation section. He has taken many classes in forensic investigation and specialty classes in investigating physical and sexual abuse of children. He also trained as a child forensic interviewer and current coordinator of the Culpeper Police Drone Team. In his spare time, Tim loves spending time with his wife Susan and his children Matthew and Hannah. And for fun, he loves to travel and he enjoys woodworking. Because we know Tim enjoys woodworking, we decided to come up with a different plaque for this year's award. So Tim, if you come up with us. So this year we did something a little bit different. We had a local business engrave this year's award on a piece of cherry. So we hope you appreciate this. On behalf of Culpeper's Victim Witness Program, we hereby present you the 2024 Victims Advocacy Award. Master Police Officer Timothy Sisk, in recognition and appreciation of your care, attention, and commitment to victims of crime. You are recognized for your tireless and courageous work. With victims, witnesses of crime, your efforts bring honor to Culpeper County. Congratulations, Tim.
Thank you. Mark, Macy, thank you very much. We do work a lot together on a lot of cases, but excuse me, I would very much like to take this time to thank my family. Over the last 30 years of doing this, there has been a lot of sacrifices. Stuff has been made by them, but they've stood by my side, and definitely like to thank my department. I see retired Chief Jenkins is here. Thank you very much. And of course, Chief Settle, Major White, Captain Terrell, I think, is back there somewhere, and my Lieutenant Myers. But thank y'all for your support of doing this. And 30 years ago when I started law enforcement, I had no idea what I was getting into. 30 years into it, I still don't know what I'm getting into. But it's definitely been a good ride, and I wish we didn't have victims that we would have to support, but this is what everybody in this room does, and we do it together, and very thankful to this community, and we do it well. But thank you again. This is a true honor, and thank you very much.
Well, congratulations, Tim. And again, Tanya, thank you so much for your beautiful presentation. We appreciate what you shared. And hopefully what we've done is begun that conversation that you referred to, because we do want to make a difference. And I don't think there's a community that's immune to the human trafficking problem. So hopefully this is the beginning of a partnership. So thank you. I want to leave you with just, I was thinking about it, and I wanted to leave you with a couple of inspirational quotes. So one that I found that I thought was really interesting was a quote from John Wayne, and it said, "Tomorrow is the most important thing in life. Comes into us at midnight very clean. It's perfect when it arrives, and it puts itself in our hands. It hopes we've learned something from yesterday." Another quote, "If you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything." That was from Mark Twain. And I don't know if anybody knows Irma Bombeck. My mother was a huge fan of Irma Bombeck, and this was a quote that I found in some of my mother's stuff when she passed away 11 years ago. "Never go to a doctor whose office plants have died." So it seems like the conversation comes up often about the challenging times we're in and how it's just getting worse and worse. And these are tough times. Chris and I, Pete and I, we drive around and have coffee, and it just seems like that topic comes up a lot. Pastor Dan, Tanya, and I, we've all talked about it. So the eagle is one of my most favorite creatures on the planet. And every once in a while, I just like researching about the eagle. And the eagle is actually really fascinating. But the eagle has one menace. Do you know what it is? What is it? A crow. A crow has no fear of an eagle. So I've seen it before where a crow will kind of chase an eagle, and it kind of blew me away. But so I did a little research on it, and this is what I found: that the eagle could destroy the crow very easily, but you'll never see an eagle attack a crow. An eagle can soar up to 30,000 feet above earth. And what an eagle does when a crow starts pestering it, it soars higher because the crow cannot. The eagle's one of the few creatures that can still breathe at that altitude. So the eagle soars to heights that the crow cannot go to. So he just avoids it and gets away with it. So I want to end this by saying, as you go back out into the workplace and into the world, when the crows start pecking on you, soar higher. Thank you. Have a great day.